The wind howls across the blood-soaked plain of Ganryujima, 1612. Two silhouettes stand 30 paces apart on a narrow sandbar, the tide licking at their ankles like a hungry beast. One is Sasaki Kajiro, the swallow-cut swordsman whose blade has never known defeat. The other is Miyamoto Musashi, late by 3 hours, barefoot, clutching a carved boat or longer than a man is tall. The sun hangs low, a dying ember behind storm clouds. No referees, no rules, only the promise of death. You think you know strength. You lift weights until your veins burst. You meditate at 4 a.m. while the world sleeps. You chase the ghost of discipline across spreadsheets and habit trackers. But what you call strength is a child's game compared to the level Musashi reached, a level so terrifying that even his enemies whispered his name like a curse. This is not the strength of muscle or willpower. This is the strength that stares into the void of its own annihilation and smiles. Musashi did not come to win. He came to become. Every second of delay was a blade against Kajiro's nerves. Every insult hurled by the crowd was a whetstone for Musashi's mind. When he finally stepped onto the sand, he had already killed his opponent 3 times in the theater of the psyche. The oar was not a weapon, it was a verdict. Tonight we descend into that same abyss. We will not glorify the samurai, we will dissect him. We will follow the path of a man who turned his body into a weapon, his mind into a fortress, and his soul into something the gods themselves feared to touch. This is the scariest level of mental and physical strength, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. What if the ultimate power is not to conquer others, but to conquer the part of you that begs to be conquered? Before we step onto the sandbar, hit subscribe and ring the bell. The tide is rising. You will need every second. The boy who would become Miyamoto Musashi was born Taxo, in a village that smelled of rice stalks and fear. His father, a failed swordsman, beat precision into him with a bakken until the child's hands bled. By 13, Taxo had killed his first man in a duel over a rice field boundary. The corpse lay face down in the mud, eyes open, reflecting a sky that didn't care. That night, Taxo vomited behind the shrine, not from guilt, but from the sudden, nauseating clarity that death was ordinary. Anyone could die. The question was, could anyone truly live? He fled the village with a stolen sword and a name he hated. The Sengoku era swallowed him whole. Battlefields where arrows fell like black rain, castles burning against crimson sunsets, warlords trading provinces like gambling chips. In this chaos, strength was currency, and Taxo spent his recklessly. He fought in the Battle of Sekigahara at 16, a foot soldier in a sea of 50,000, watching banners fall and men scream as their intestines steamed in the cold. He survived by moving faster than thought, by learning that the body obeys when the mind refuses to blink. But survival is not strength. Survival is luck wearing armor. Taxo began to suspect the real battlefield was inside the skull. Every night he sat beneath corpse-strewn trees, sharpening his blade while sharpening something deeper. He read the Chinese classics by firelight, stolen from dead officers. He watched crows pick at samurai helmets and wondered why men built empires only to feed worms. The question gnawed at him like a rat in the ribs. If everything ends, what is worth fighting for? By 20, he had won 60 duels, none lasting more than 3 breaths. His reputation grew, but so did the hollowness. Victory tasted like ash. He began to experiment. He fought left-handed to weaken himself. He slept in graveyards to desensitize fear. He starved for days, then fought on an empty stomach to learn the geometry of hunger. Each deprivation was a question. How much of me can I strip away and still remain lethal? The world called him a demon. He called it research. In 1600, after Sekigahara, he vanished into the mountains of Higo. For 5 years, no one saw him. Rumors spread. He had died, he had become a monk, he had been eaten by wolves. The truth was uglier. He chained himself to a cedar tree during winter naked with only his sword. Frostbite took 2 toes. Hallucinations came. His dead father, the boy he killed at 13, a faceless woman whispering that strength was a lie. He answered them by cutting the chains with his own blade, then walking barefoot through snow until the pain became a drumbeat keeping time with his heart. When he emerged, he took the name Musashi. The boy was dead. The research had begun. The Book of Five Rings is not a manual. It is a confession written in blood and pine smoke. Musashi never intended it for students. He wrote it for himself, to trap the lightning that struck him on mountaintops and battlefields. 5 scrolls, 5 elements, 1 unspoken truth. The scariest strength is not the power to destroy, but the power to become the thing that cannot be destroyed. Earth, he begins with the body as foundation. Most men treat flesh like a temple. Musashi treated it like a battlefield. He measured every tendon, every heartbeat, every blink. He discovered that the average swordsman swings at the idea of the opponent. Musashi swung at the space the opponent would occupy in the next heartbeat. To train this, he hung paper lanterns from trees at dusk and cut them before the flame touched the wick. 1,000 nights, 1,000 perfect extinctions of light. The body learned to move before the mind decided. Water adaptability without identity. Here he reveals the terror. The self is a current, not a stone. In one duel, he fought a spearman on a bridge slick with rain. The spear thrust high. Musashi dropped his sword, caught the shaft, and pulled. The spearman fell forward into the river. Musashi never retrieved his blade. He walked away with the spear. The weapon does not matter. The flow matters. He trained this by fighting blindfolded in rice paddies, learning to read the splash of an opponent's footfall like Braille. When the blindfold came off, he saw the world as ripples. Fire, the psychology of annihilation. Musashi writes, "Make your enemy see the fire in your eyes, then show him the void behind it." He cultivated a stare that made men piss themselves before steel was drawn. How? He practiced on wolves. Captured, starved, released into enclosures with him. He would lock eyes until the animal submitted or attacked. Then he killed it with his hands, not for cruelty, for calibration. The moment the wolf's pupils dilated, Musashi knew the exact microsecond when fear became action. He carried that timing into every duel. Wind, the study of schools. Musashi dissected every style like a corpse. He fought the Yagyu clan's shadow techniques in moonless forests. He dueled the Yoshioka school with a child's wooden sword. Each victory was data. He discovered that style is a mask. Beneath every kata is the same animal panic. He trained his students to lose on purpose, to be disarmed, to fight with broken fingers. Victory through defeat, he wrote. The tree that bends does not break. Void, the final ring, the scariest. Here words fail. Musashi describes it as the place where nothing is and everything begins. He reached it once on Ganryujima when time slowed and he saw Kojiro's death before the ore touched flesh. He never spoke of it again. Some say he wept afterward. Others say he laughed until he coughed blood. The void is not emptiness. It is the moment the self dissolves and only action remains. No fear, no pride, no Musashi. He ends the book with a warning. Do not seek to follow in my footsteps. The path ends where I stand. But we are already walking it. The duel with Sasaki Kojiro was never about a sword. It was about the architecture of terror. Musashi arrived 3 hours late barefoot, holding a carved oar. The delay was not arrogance, it was a scalpel. Every minute he kept Kojiro waiting carved another groove into the man's composure. The crowd screamed insults. Musashi smiled. He had spent the night on a fishing boat, carving the oar with a knife, whispering to the wood like a lover. You will be longer than his blade. You will be heavier. You will be the last thing he sees. Kojiro's Tsubengishi swallow reversal was legendary. A cut so fast it seemed to reverse direction midair, slicing the throat before the eye registered motion. Musashi had studied it for months, not by watching men but by watching swallows. He trapped birds in nets, released them, observed the arc of their wings as they banked to escape. Then he built a machine, a wooden arm on a pivot, weighted with stones, triggered by a tripwire. He practiced dodging the swallow until the motion was burned into his spine. On the sandbar, the tide rose. Kojiro's footwork faltered. Musashi had chosen the time and place. Low tide at dawn, then rising water to shrink the fighting space. Kojiro's longer nadachi needed room to swing. Musashi's oar did not. The first clash was not steel on wood, it was psychology on flesh. Musashi fainted high, then stepped inside Kojiro's reach where the long blade was useless. The oar cracked against Kojiro's temple. Blood sprayed like red mist. Kojiro staggered, swung wildly. Musashi pivoted, using the oar's length to hook Kojiro's ankle. The swordsman fell. The oar came down once. The swallow never returned. But the true terror was after. Musashi did not celebrate. He sat beside the corpse, closed Kojiro's eyes, and spoke to the dead man for an hour. No one heard the words. Some say he apologized. Others say he asked for forgiveness. The next day, he buried the oar with Kojiro. The weapon that ended a legend became part of the earth. Musashi walked away with nothing but the knowledge that he had become the duel itself. This is the level that scares us, not the kill, the becoming. The moment the self is erased and only the act remains. Musashi did not win because he was stronger. He won because he had already died 1,000 times in his mind. Kojiro fought to live. Musashi fought to end. And in that ending, he found the void. The years after Ganryujima were not victory. They were autopsy. Musashi wandered Japan like a ghost with a sword, refusing patronage, refusing students, refusing the title of hero. He painted crows on silk, carved Buddhas from driftwood, wrote poetry that made monks weep. He slept in caves, fought bandits for rice, taught farmers to hold a spear with one hand while plowing with the other. The man who once chained himself to trees now chained himself to nothing. No clan, no lord, no name beyond the one he had taken. At 50, he dueled no more. The body betrayed him, joints swollen from old wounds, eyes clouded by cataracts, yet the mind sharpened. He began to see the second battlefield, the one society builds inside every skull. Warlords used fear, merchants used desire, priests used guilt. All of them sold the same lie: you are not enough. Buy this, obey this, become this. Musashi recognized the pattern because he had lived it. The boy who killed at 13 had been a puppet of rage. The youth who starved in mountains had been a puppet of ambition. The man who carved an oar had been a puppet of destiny. Now he cut the strings. He settled in a cave on Mount Iwado, living on ferns and rainwater. Visitors came. Samurai seeking secrets, ronin seeking vengeance, women seeking love. He turned them all away unless they brought a question that bled. One night a boy arrived with a broken sword and a broken heart. "How do I become strong like you?" Musashi laughed until he coughed blood. Then he took the boy's hand and pressed it against his own scarred chest. "Feel that? Still beating, still afraid. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act while the heart screams no." He began to write again, not strategy but confession. Fragments on scraps of bark. "I killed 60 men and none of them taught me how to live. The sword is a mirror. Look long enough and you see your own throat. Power is a child playing with fire. Enlightenment is the burn scar that remembers." In 1645, fever took him. He refused medicine. On his deathbed, he asked for his sword, not to hold it, to break it. The blade snapped like dry bone. He smiled. "Now I am unarmed." His final words, whispered to a student who disobeyed the no visitors rule: "Do not mourn me. Mourn the part of yourself that still believes strength is something you can own." The cave is empty now. The sword fragments are dust, but the terror remains. Musashi's true duel was never with Kojiro or the Yashioka or the wolves. It was with the story that a man must be unbreakable to be free. He lost that duel on purpose, and in losing, he won everything. The scariest level of strength is not the power to destroy the world. It is the power to let the world destroy the lie you mistook for yourself. The rain begins as you close the tab, the video, the legend. Somewhere in the city, a siren dopplers into silence. You sit in the half-dark, pulse still echoing Musashi's oar against bone. The apartment feels smaller, the walls closer, the air thicker with the residue of a question that will not leave. What part of me is still begging to be conquered? You do not need a mountain cave. You do not need a sword. The battlefield is already here. The phone that owns your attention, the job that owns your fear, the mirror that owns your verdict. Musashi's terror was never the kill count. It was the moment he realized every habit, every identity, every I must was a string he could cut. Start tonight, not with grand vows, with one deliberate fracture. Pick the habit that feels unbreakable, the scroll, the drink, the rage, the excuse. Do not fight it. Invite it. Set a timer for 5 minutes and perform the ritual wrong. Scroll with your left thumb until the motion feels alien. Pour the drink and let it sit until it sweats. Speak the rage into an empty room and listen to how small it sounds. Watch the craving rise like tide on Ganryujima. Then do nothing. Let it crest. Let it crash. Let it recede without obedience. This is the ore you carve from ordinary wood. This is the delay you weaponize. The enemy is not the urge. The enemy is the story that surrender equals defeat. Tomorrow, repeat. The day after, repeat. On the 7th repetition, break something you value, a streak, a promise, a porcelain cup. Collect the shards. Do not glue them yet. Live with the jagged edges for one full moon. Feel the danger of being unfinished. When the glue finally comes, use gold paint, cheap and bright. Fill every crack until the object is uglier, heavier, truer. Place it where the urge strikes first. Let it remind you, the fracture was not the end. It was the beginning of the becoming. Musashi died unarmed. You will not. You will carry the broken thing like a credential. You will walk into meetings, conversations, silences holding the proof that you have already survived your own annihilation. The scariest level of strength is not waiting in a cave or a dojo. It is waiting in the next deliberate imperfection you refuse to hide. Step onto the sandbar. The tide is rising. The ore is in your hand. Cut the string. If this cut you open, smash that like button until it cracks. Drop your fracture in the comments with ore in hand. I read every shard. Subscribe. The next duel is already inside you.